So the other part of the vehicle update is a new armor system. We also redone all the damage vehicles will take. That's also something we've made completely from scratch, and it's a slightly new system than before. Here on the screen, you'll see the hitbox set up for the Jumbo Sherman. And what we are looking at right now is the armor collision, because now we've been splitting up the armor model into external and internal armored components.
You've basically made a new set of armor for each vehicle,
yes.
I understand? Yeah.
So what we have here is the outer armor of the Jumbo Sherman. This is all the hit collision mesh that the shots will hit initially, and we'll then check if it'll penetrate. All these different plates are separated into groups. We have the front group here, which have different thicknesses for the different surfaces. And these are also based on the real values, which was also provided to us by the reference forum. Thank you again. And then we have the other groups like the side, right side, left side, top, bottom, turret, mantlet, skirts. Skirts also includes something like the bogey systems, just all the parts on the outside of the tank. That's not part of the actual armor, but does add a bit extra. As I said, the thicknesses are based on the real values. However, I have made it so that weak points like hatches or odd bulges, they might be actually thicker when you're looking at physical thickness, but the structure of them, the very nature of them, actually makes them weaker. For example, you have the T-34, which has a hatch at the front of the driver, which is actually 75 millimeters thick, which is thicker than the rest of the front plate. Yet this is still known to be one of the weaker points of the tank, even though it's thicker. When you shoot at this, the shots will go through. And the Germans knew how to target these front plates. So on all hatches, I've made them roughly half the thickness that they should be. Give and take, I do a bit of better judgment on some of the thinner plates or some of the thicker plates to find something that'll match gameplay-wise. And for stuff like odd bulges, which I don't really have any on this tank, I do them about 2/3 of the original thickness. So whenever you see a hatch, and this includes the hull gun on the tanks, this is a weaker point than the rest of the tanks, so it's worth shooting at those points.
Cool.
I mentioned before that I've grouped all the different parts together. So we have the front group, which consists of everything here. When you start shooting at the front part, shooting at a group, and you fail to penetrate, you are actually applying some armor damage, which means you are wearing down this group shot by shot. And
so that means basically if you hit a tank,
yes,
you will make a difference in...
Yes, so even though you don't make a penetration on it, you will wear down the armor in that group. And what it effectively does is that it reduces the thickness of the armor in that group. So you can just keep pounding on the front plate until you might eventually go through.
Or at least you make it thin enough for somebody else to be able to penetrate it easily.
Yes. There is a limit to how thin you can do you can wear down the armor, and we set that limit to 50%. So you can never make the armor more than half the thickness that it should be.
And just to hammer in a point, you could actually use even the smallest pistols in the game to wear down the armor from a theoretical point of view.
Theoretically, you could shoot with your pistol at the armor and wear it down, but it takes 5,000 damage points to wear down the armor to 50%, and I believe the pistol gives 5
or something like
armor
that.
damage. So it would take...
So you need a couple of truckloads of ammo.
Yes. So theoretically possible, practically no.
No, not a good idea.
So when you do make a penetration on the armor, you had a shot, it has enough penetration to make it through the armor. Then we have internal components, which I've highlighted here. Some of these components are also on the outside, such as the tracks. You have the gun barrel, the gun breech, transmission. We have some ammo depots inside it, fuel, and of course the engine. You shoot at the tank, you make a penetration on the armor, and it'll then check on the inside what have you hit.
What you hit, yeah.
And then do damage to that. And each
so
component.
You could actually, when you hit a tank, you could hit, say, the chair of the tank driver as well, but that's not.
No, we only have the vital components, such as.
It's more of a kind of you don't necessarily hit a vital component, and when you don't, it would, in real life, be like your shot ending up in the corner somewhere in the tank doing not that much damage.
I'll get back to what happens if you're not hitting one of the vital components.
Let's do that.
In just a bit. Just a brief overview of all the components. They all have an effect, or most of them have an effect when you hit them, or when you destroy them, I should say. Like if you destroy the engine, it'll make your top speed slower. You'll slow down to 20% of your normal speed. And then I should also mention that some tanks have multiple engines, such as the T-70, and if you damage one of the engines, then it's only half that penalty until you get both of the engines. Yeah. So there's a benefit to having multiple engines in some of the vehicles. Anyhow, if you damage the transmission, then you are damaging the acceleration of the tank, so it won't accelerate as fast, and it'll be 50% the top speed. The ammunition and the fuel depots, they don't actually do anything negative to the tank when they are destroyed. However, they have a very big damage multiplier, which means when you hit those, the tank will take a lot of damage. Then we have the tracks. When you destroy the tracks, you're reducing the speed of that single track, which means that the tank will start driving in circles unless you're trying to correct for it constantly. And we have the turret ring, which is around the turret. If you damage that, the turret will rotate slower, and you can damage the gun breech, which means that you can't fire the gun anymore. However, it is difficult to get into the gun breech.
At least.
If you miss any of the vital components, we have a backup plan, which is what we call the base structure, which is just an outline of the basic insides of the tank. So if you make it through the armor and make it into the tank, then it'll just give some overall damage to the tank. It's not a very big multiplier that is on it, so you're not dealing full damage to the tank, but you will eventually be able to beat it into submission if you just
pound it enough.
Yeah. So you can just keep pounding it, even though you don't hit any vital components. It will eventually be destroyed by that. Also, if you keep shooting at one of the components that is already destroyed, it will automatically transmit all the damage to the base structure instead.
Okay, like that, yeah.
And the last picture I have here is just how it looks on top of the actual model. So enough of that jabber. Let's go back in the game and.
Just a question there.
Yes.
To this, so basically, a tank can sustain a certain amount of damage.
Yes.
And when you've applied that amount of damage as an enemy, it's dead.
Yes. So when you are damaging the components, it's actually calculating how much damage have this component been given. Then there's a multiplier on each component. For example, the ammunition, I don't remember how much it is, but it has a low amount of hit points, but a large multiplier. So it's easily destroyed, and then counts as a lot of damage. Sure. And then there's an upper limit on each vehicle on how much damage they'll take before they are destroyed.
Good.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Perfect.
Basic message is shoot the tanks a lot until they go boom.
Yes.
Yes.
So.
And the planes, do they work the same way?
Sort of. The planes don't have any actual external armor.
Okay.
There are a few exceptions like armored glass, but not really.
Practically, they don't have.
They have all external components such as the wings, the fuselage, the rudder and the elevator, and of course the engine.
Yeah.
And when you start damaging those, the plane will handle differently. Like if you are damaging the left wing, it'll be slower to roll toward the right.
Okay.
And likewise, if you damage the rudder, it'll yaw slower. And
Cool.
if you damage the engine, it'll fly quite slowly and be difficult to fly.
Yeah.
So let me just find a good place to do a mock-up tank battle. This looks like a good spot, and I see a panda in front of me. Excellent. What better to fight a panda than... Let's go for a T-34 with the small gun. And I'll actually just start by going to the front and try shooting at the massive front plate a bit. And here I should also mention that with the new vehicle model, we are also doing some stuff on the projectile damage, and now penetration also depends on the distance you're shooting.
Okay.
So some tanks will have to get on close to make penetration, and the penetration will drop off over distance.
Or distance, yeah.
And the larger the caliber, the less drop off. So you
course,
get
yeah.
longer ranges with large caliber guns. So let me start by trying shooting a bit at the front armor. And you can see down here that it prompts me that I've damaged the front armor, which means I didn't penetrate, but I did do some damage to it. Let me try again. Still did some damage, but didn't penetrate. Again, no penetration, and that's because the front plate on the Panther is quite thick, and it should be difficult for T-34 to penetrate it. But I can eventually wear this down, and there
There you went.
yes, and I even hit the ammunition component behind it. That was a lucky shot.
This one's a lucky shot, yeah.
So I just did, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots without penetrating, and then the 7th shot penetrated.
Simply
And-
because you wore the armor thickness down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I then fortunately hit the ammunition compartment, which you saw burst into flames. And let's just walk over there and see how much damage the vehicle has taken. So here you can see that some of the ammunition compartments has been damaged, and the tank in the center, it fills up with red the more damaged the tank is. And the armor thicknesses are indicated by the interrupted circle around it, and that they get shorter and shorter and shorter the
Okay.
more. So here you can see, I don't think you can make it out here on the screen, but this is slightly more narrow than it was before because it's been worn down. Aside from that, the vehicle hasn't taken a whole lot of damage, so I think I just hit one of the smaller depots. So let me go back to my T-34 and try some more.
Try something else, yeah.
For example, one good trick if you are outgunned is to go for the tracks. So now I damaged the track, but I didn't destroy it. Let me try again. Now the track is destroyed. I can also try and hit the turret ring if I'm lucky. I'm not sure if it's destroyed, but let's go check it out.
Have a look at the... You can actually see the track being destroyed.
So now the track is all wonky because it's destroyed. And now you can see in your heads-up display that the track is red because it's destroyed, and the turret ring is red because that is destroyed. And you'll notice how much slower it is to rotate now that the turret ring is destroyed. And if I try to move straight forward, you'll see that the tank will start driving in circles. So to drive this, I would now have to constantly correct for it and try turning to the left. So that's slightly annoying, but still the tank is not very damaged. I think it's about 1/4 to 1/3
Yeah,
damaged.
something like that. Yeah.
So it can still take a lot of punishment before it's actually destroyed. So let me get it back.
But it is a viable strategy or tactic, though. If you have a light tank and a heavy tank comes along,
Yes, then
seeing can you shoot out a track and then
yeah.
get the hell out of
So
there?
go for the track or the turret ring. Otherwise, try to get behind them where the armor is thinner.
Yeah.
And here I got another ammunition depot. And you'll notice that now I shot it from the side, which is relatively thin, and it went through on the first shot.
Yeah.
And now I can also see that the tank has started to smoke. So that means I probably got one of the larger ammunition depots. The tanks will start smoking when they are low on health. They will not catch on fire like we had before. And we can now see that it's about 60% health.
Yes, okay, yeah.
And it's not very good to maneuver, but it's still alive and kicking. Let me just try to get one shot. It's so slow. So one shot damaged the engine, but it's not destroyed. Now the engine is destroyed on the T-34. But again, it's still alive. And it's ready to deal the final blow to the Panther. And here we can see the top speed of the vehicle is a bit slower than it was before, because it has a destroyed engine. But it should be able to creep up and hit the fuel depot.
Which is not a healthy thing, no.
And you can now see that the Panther is smoking even more. Let me get one more shot at the back, and now the Panther is destroyed. And you will notice we now have a wreck.
You now have a wreck, yeah.
The tanks no longer just explode and disappear in a big soap bubble, but they actually start to burn. And the tanks will only be on fire when they are destroyed, with the exception for the fuel explosions and the ammunition explosions, which are only temporary. When they are continuously on fire, you know it's a wrecked tank. And you can see it's slumped down, the suspension has been relaxed, so it falls down to the side. And this
You could actually use that for cover,
yes.
but it won't stay in the game, though.
The wrecks will stay there for 42 seconds.
Except for now, because we've cheated and disabled.
No, they still stay for 42 seconds.
Yeah.
Or when the rule we have that vehicles despawn if the player is has respawned or is not active anymore, then there's the fallback timer. We also made it so 10 seconds before the wreck will time out, you'll start getting more flames. So if you're using it for cover, you will be able to see that your cover is about to disappear. However, this effect does not activate when the other despawn timer runs out.
Okay.
So it's only if it stayed there for 32 seconds,
Yeah.
then it starts burning more until the 42nd
So
second.
basically, it's a temporary cover you can use to get
Yes.
out of the way and possibly into safety.
Yeah. And the reason why we are not letting the wrecks stay there indefinitely is that people would just be able to block off.
Entrance points and
yes.
stuff like that, yeah.
You can also damage the wrecks if you have a big enough vehicle and a small enough wreck. You can actually destroy it by driving over it, or just keep shooting it until it's destroyed. However, shooting it is not the most efficient way of doing it. It is easier to just ram it. So if I take a Jeep and I shoot it with my tank. Of course, this tank doesn't have a whole lot of depression, so it's a bit difficult to hit the actual engine. There goes the engine. And there goes the car. If I drive over this, it should be crushed and explode. There we go.
There you go. That's great. So just to sum it up, what we've been looking at is all vehicles have been fitted with external armor divided into groups that have different vulnerabilities or places where you, as an enemy, would want to shoot a tank. And all vehicles have been fitted with components such as engine and fuel and ammunition. And with all vehicles, we mean really all vehicles, even
Yes.
the bicycle actually
Even the bicycle.
has components. And there's a new damage system that simply is more, should we say, complex, that gives a bit more room for the smaller tanks to fight off
Yes.
the larger tanks.
And we have buffed the amount of damage you need to actually destroy a tank
Yeah.
quite a bit. So you can
You
damage
do-
the tank, you can halfway disable it, you can disable some features of it, but it won't just explode as easily as it did
Just
before.
slapping on a couple of mines is not gonna
No.
do you much good.
No. It will do you good if you know where to place them. And
Yeah.
for example, if you place it over the engine, then you can damage the engine with 2 mines, I think. But it won't destroy the tank completely.
Cool.